Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm Dakota, also known as Primal Sabbath on the interwebs, and this is issue number 2 of Information Creep. Because we got a name. If you guys want to introduce yourself, Greg, you can go first.
Hey, what's going on, guys? How are you?
All right, and Spiros.
Hey, how's everyone doing today?
Oh, pretty good. So it's just the three of us today. Walter couldn't make it, so you can find him in the Realm of Collectors Facebook group, amongst other places. So unfortunately, we couldn't get him, but he did have a lot of work to go through last night. Today we're going to keep it really simple. We're just going to focus on All Hail Megatron. I think because, we don't have 3 hours plus to do anything else. So
The irony of keeping it simple by just doing all Hail Megatron
right.
is
It's not that simple, is it? So it starts out very straightforward, I think. We'll talk about some of the covers. Greg, we talked about it briefly before we went live, but just looking at issue number 1 here with it's a very iconic image. You can find it on Google image search all the time. You just search Megatron, really, with him having an American flagpole like splitting, well, not quite in half, but in 2 pieces, with the American flag kind of dangling in Prime's head on a pole. I don't know, that's something I liked, and also the Killing Joke homage cover with Reflector. I thought was really cool, considering Reflector's like dead. But it starts out pretty simple. It shows the big fight on Cybertron, a world in ruins, and shows them kind of landing on Earth and fighting in what looks to be no battle in general. And then it flash forwards to 1 year later, in New York. What I like about this particular scene is you see like all the billboards and stuff in New York. Like you see like the Takara and the Tomy signs and like half of what would say Hasbro, and looks like the next half of like a Toys R Us sign. Which wasn't there a Toys R Us in the middle of New York City?
there was one in Times Square until
Right.
it failed.
Yeah, exactly. But I believe this is in Times Square because I see the big Virgin logo, and then we have some Constructicons pulling up, and I think this story, this book in particular, had a really kind of funny start. They all transform. They're walking around. Everyone's like, "Hey, look at that! Get a picture!" And is it Scrapper that says, "Hey, we're here for bringing you world peace and all this other stuff," and then they all start laughing and start killing everyone and busting all the buildings and talking about how squishy rocks are. And that's whenever the Seekers come in and they start messing stuff up, something fierce, and then Starscream's talking about how he's terror and Megatron's nothing. Then Megatron shows up like Godzilla, and you see him like through some window panes first, and he knocks Starscream, saying he talks so big for someone so small, or everything about you is small, which I thought was funny. Let's see. Then it looks like the Air Force is doing what they do best, and they're trying to do what they do best, and they're just getting kind of knocked out of the air left and right. Megatron tells them to kind of wait. He's just like, look, let them throw everything they've got at us first, because he likes a good challenge, I guess. At which point they fail, and then he lets the Seekers attack, and Soundwave's ejecting cassette tapes and giant cassette tapes at that. The little Insecticons are flying around, all of that fun stuff. And then we've got the Seekers taking the air-to-air combat thing pretty seriously, in which case you see who kissed his fingers to a picture of, I'm guessing, his girlfriend, his sweetheart back home. And then he shoots the guy's jet, and that guy tries to slam it into Megatron. And let's see, I'm trying to remember the exact words. Oh yeah, he said, "How dare you? I am Megatron," and just swats it out of the air like it was nothing. And he's laughing. Then back on Cybertron, we see the Autobots. They're all looking broken up, beat up, and a very sad, gloomy state. And it looks like Prowl has this little data pad. He walks and he hands it to Jazz, and then Jazz looks at it ever so briefly while tossing it aside in a very silent page, really. And then we see Prime all busted up and broken and laying on what looks to be a bed with life support. And that's issue number 1. So anything memorable you guys want to talk about for issue number 1?
Yeah, I love the appearance of very conspicuous green construction vehicles in New York, and nobody takes notice of it.
Until they turn into robots.
Yeah, I mean, that whole thing was extremely well done. That's one of my favorite parts of this entire series. Just, yeah. I mean, it takes the old science fiction trope of the 50s, you know, that we come to beasts, and yeah, it's just very well done.
Yeah,
very well done. This whole story is, but that specifically, and it does a lot. I mean, it's a good standalone story because this was one of the first, because I didn't get into the IDW stuff at first, and this was just a good standalone story because it's got everything. Like, it establishes like the start of a new battle. It sets up the dynamic between Starscream and Megatron like right off the bat. It shows that the humans are grossly overpowered against, Megatron levels of fucking building with one shot just to prove a point. So, yeah, I mean, I just think it's a really solid intro to a pretty solid story. But
and the artwork was really solid. Like, this was Guido Guidi, and I believe Josh Bertram was on colors for this. And the art, it was very consistent, like, even all throughout.
You're correct. It was Josh Bertram.
Cool.
He was part of the colors. He was the colors on this. There were 4 other guys working on the colors as well, but
yeah.
Yeah, it looks like Casey Collar also did work, but it's later on in the series.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
he's a good guy. I follow him on Twitter, and he is always showcasing his art, and he's quite talented, even with non-Transformer stuff.
Very cool. I'd also like to point out, like, as a first issue, it really leaves you kind of hanging on your seat as for, like, what's next. Very, very good cliffhanger type material, which I guess brings us into the second issue. That doesn't quite pick up, but we see this large, and looks like some very wealthy people are at a social gathering, and it looks like what was his name? They called him Danny, right? Who we would know as like Sparkplug from the G1 cartoon, Spike's dad. Yep. Just see him kind of shooting the breeze, and I think he was talking military talk with some of, and these look to be like people that his wife, typical wives wanting to socialize and whatnot. And then we see a helicopter land, and a soldier gets out and salutes him as Colonel Witwicky. There we go. Probably got to that a little too quick. And he's telling him, like, there is a big emergency. At which point he's asking what kind of emergency. And then we kind of pan back to the battle that's kind of going on over New York. And we got Skywarp just sort of levitating in the air. Look at that pretty sweet MP03 design. I'm sure that was totally coincidental, but I'm pretty sure that was also in Walmart stores at the time. But we have Skywarp saying, bring him down. And it looks like Astro Train and Thundercracker are kind of in the fore image of that. And then more destruction and mass chaos, and then looks like there's another military guy running through the streets, saving damsels in distress. And they run into an alley, and I think that's whenever they first see Ravage. Mm-hmm. Or we first see Ravage, at least. It doesn't look like he's Ravage. The next panel, this is where I think a lot of stuff starts to get going on. We see Colonel Witwicky, helicopter, talking to some dudes. At this point, we go back and we see Ravage getting shot at in his face. Poor Ravage. He's just a kiddie. He's just trying to do his job. But like saying that, like Ravage looks so freaking brutal in this particular issue. Like, yeah, I mean, we'll talk about him later on whenever we get caught up to like the Lost Light. But he just like in Lost Light, he's totally just a little kitty. But in this, man, he was like full on like armored up battle cat, like teeth and missiles and just everything, dude. They really made him look way more badass than I think he really should have been, truth be told. But it's also, a gigantic robotic cat that turns into a giant cassette tape. So, but then they get saved by this mystery hero who lifts a gate, looks like a loading gate, and throws a Molotov cocktail and then slams it shut behind them. In which time this kind of unknown military dude says, "I hate dogs," which, okay, ironic, I get it. We got some more brass walking onto the battlefield, and by the battlefield I mean like several miles away from where all the action's going on. Chain of command. Looks like they're talking about a bunch of nonsense. Then we kind of pan back to Soundwave telling Megatron that Laserbeak's got some intel that the enemy forces are gathering. In which case, I think Astrotrain recommended to send the Insecticons. When Megatron had other ideas, he wanted him to unleash Frenzy. So this looks like they're in, I would guess, Central Park. Like, I've never been to New York, so all of these. Like,
yeah, the colonel. The colonel specifically says to get the units to Central Park on the page prior.
Okay, cool. That's maybe I should read a little bit. That'd probably help me out. So it looks like they're in Central Park. Well, they are in Central Park, and looks like they're looking through binoculars. We see Astrotrain and Skywarp, a Constructicon, which I believe is still Scrapper, and Soundwave. They're just kind of walking up, casual. What's up? Was it Hook? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know my Constructicons, man. You know I'm a Beast Wars guy.
That's all right. That's why I'm here.
I appreciate that. So the G.I. Joes out there in Central Park, they're just like 4 of them. They only brought 4? That's hilarious. But under them, Soundwave has this secret weapon in which he so calmly states, "Frenzy, eject." I'd like to point out Frenzy is blue here, and that's what I'm going to stick with. I guess we can have that debate for another time for anyone who...
Can we edit this part out before it goes up? Because I don't want to have to fucking deal with that shit in the comments.
Well, see, we I don't think we would have to deal with it, though, because it's going up on the Realm of Collectors YouTube channel, and it'll also be on the realmofcollectors.com website under podcast information creep. You'll get to see it. It's part of the Cool Table Network on iTunes, so go check it out there. Nice plug. So again, I think Eddie, he'll have to be the one that has to deal with Frenzy being blue.
Oh, that's not very nice to set somebody else up.
Yeah, no, I'll message him about it.
We have to take responsibility for our own drama.
As I send him the video file, I'll just be like, "Oh, hey, by the way, Frenzy was blue in this. See you later." We'll take care of it. You can just email me at primalsabbath@gmail.com. It'll go straight to spam. Anyways, he just starts tearing everything up, and they explain that Frenzy's central core constantly emits an intense infrasonic frequency and extremely horrific delusions. Even to him, no one's immune except for Soundwave, apparently, which is very neat. It looks like, I guess, Frenzy maybe gets a control on that later on. Like, we're kind of jumping ahead of ourselves, but it just...
Well, like most of the things in All Hail Megatron, it either got dropped or explained away.
Yeah, and I'm sure it got explained away just with how Frenzy is now, but one of those things. More chaos and panic, folks running through the city. They're all trying to get underground because that's totally going to help. Shows them all going, like all these cars and people just running over cars going into the Holland Tunnel. And then it shoots back to a bunch of guys sitting in a tent with a bunch of computer screens around them, with one of them asking alien robots. And we see like little crude drawings of like a Starscream and an Optimus Prime, like an outline of Megatron, stuff like that. I don't know, just little things please me. So, I believe, let's see, one of them said that they thought that they had dealt with the quote-unquote robot terrorists, loosely quoting, I guess I should say, prior to, at which point the other guy brings up the Machination. So, yay, they brought those guys up. And let's see.
Also like to note, I don't know if it's intentional, but the guy next to Colonel Wiki has the last name Hawk on his uniform. I don't know if it's supposed to be General Hawk from the G.I. Joe series.
Yeah, and which I'm sure at the time that it was probably just an Easter egg, but
Right.
I could see where it would fit now. I'm trying to remember because I do read the kind of rebooted G.I. Joe comic, and I'm trying to remember if Hawk has been directly like linked to or whatever. That's a strange. We'll try not to go too far down that road. But,
Yeah, we'll save that for another episode.
Oh yeah.
Be sure to stay tuned in, folks.
So let's see. Looks like they're all talking about cover-ups and whatnots. And then let's see. Oh, then there's a guy coming in talking about all the casualties, which was all of them, all of their soldiers, because he wanted to know how many they lost. He said all of them. And then we got some pretty bad, scary O-faces going on right here in this panel. Then Megatron, we pan back to Megatron. He says, the bridges are falling. The time has come. And he's, looking at all of his green soldiers and then Soundwave and Astro Train. And looks like Skywarp. I'm pretty sure that's Skywarp. And then this is when we get to see the Constructicons' first form. And he says, Constructicons, unite. And all we see is just this shadow with the other four just looking up at it, and it looks like it's still kind of forming. And then we get a Devastator with no purple shield on his chest, which is fine, I guess. Someone maybe didn't have that piece when they were a kid. And what's up?
So, second glaring continuity error of All Hail Megatron.
Yeah, dude. Shield chest thing.
Oh no, I mean the fact that the Constructicons can combine, because it was stated that Monstructor was the only combiner because Geoxys experimented on them.
Yeah, well, see, I thought Swindle had something to do with this too. I thought they at least alluded to that at some point.
No, they'll cover that in the RID series later on.
Okay, I know it was talked about at one point, but yeah, just didn't know when. It's all kind of blending together because I was reading this, and I've also been like rereading the RID and More Than Meets the Eye stuff, trying to kind of do a little bit of double duty, I guess. But we see on the monitor, they're all of the generals that were in the room. One of them is just like, a thing must be massive. It's like, well, yeah, it's a bunch of construction vehicles.
Well, if you look at the next picture, it's a lot more massive than... I mean, well, shit, look at that picture. Like, it's definitely bigger than the sum of its parts. Because, look, there's a little car, and there's a bus. And then if you look at the next page after that, look at those little sailboats.
Yeah. But, I mean, it's mass shifting, It's...
Is that what it is? Is that what it is?
It's totally mass shifting. Because, see... Even whenever they brought in the Enigma of Combination, again, way later in story, you see, like, Starscream just kind of looking at Superion, or the pieces of Superion that's left, and they're way too huge than when they are, like, in their individual sizes. I think it's just mass shifting.
Oh, the MacGuffin of salesmanship. Yeah, I remember that storyline.
Yeah. hey, buy these
Dakota,
toys.
Dakota, don't fansplain away art errors, okay?
I'm trying not to, man.
Well, that's the thing. Mass shifting was only invented in comics just to explain away the fucking error in the show. But
To explain how a jet in a car can turn into the same size robot.
basically,
Or even that a robot could turn into a small handheld gun
Yeah.
that was the size of another robot. But so like Greg said, we see him walking into the water and just like crushing sailboats. All these people were trying to do was just enjoy their summer day, and well, it got ruined. And that was the end of issue 2.
Well,
he's actually collapsing.
you're, oh, go ahead, Greg.
You go ahead.
No, I like it when you correct people better than me.
No, you do it. You do it. You sound better doing it.
Okay,
I
so
didn't correct it.
I'll put on my Bob Belcher voice.
You've been
So
watching it, haven't you?
yeah, I have. So Megatron specifically says that, or I mean, the humans specifically say that Devastator's attacking the tunnels where the people are all crowded, and then we see. Sorry, Dakota, I'm going to hijack the for you.
He has a talking pillow right now.
Then we see a bunch of people huddled in the subways, and there's conversation about where's mommy, and you hear that, and there's a train coming down the tracks, and it must be something to save them. But unfortunately, it's an old giant purple locomotive with very Easter eggy D62 designation on the front of it, which is the Takara designation for Astro Chain. And
all the
then
Easter eggs they put in these books. I'm sorry, keep going.
No, it's all right. And then Astro Train transforms, looking very menacing, and I'm sure he slaughtered wholesale every person in the tunnels.
I mean, if he didn't directly, like all of the falling debris certainly did.
Yeah, or the water flooding in from Devastator's
And
Mega
look at those
Punch.
Hasbro colors on that Astro Train too.
Yeah, so like that's kind of the whole thing. Like they're setting up how these invasions, like, because in in G1 they were like, all right, here's what we're gonna do, guys. We're gonna go make some energon out of oil, and then we're gonna steal the sun, and then we're going to, and it's like some stupid plan. And this shows that like there's a military aspect to what they do, and so yeah, like like he clarified. They forced everyone underground. They did the destruction on the surface. They forced everyone underground into the subway tunnels where they thought they were safe, and they corralled them all together. And then once they destroyed the bridges, they went underground, and then that's when Devastator started collapsing the tunnels. And then that's when the smaller transformer, like Astro Train, who could be small or large, depending on what day it is. And I think the Insecticons later on are in the tunnels and whatever. But it just shows that there's like a method to the madness. Like even like with Vision of the Cassette ejects, like first it was Rumble, and then it was Ravage, and then it was Laserbeak to record, and then Frenzy had a specific like job. It just shows there's a military order of sorts to it, which you didn't see before. Like, you didn't see, I don't even think you saw that in G1. I mean, I think with, like, the Wreckers and stuff, they, like, tried to make it sound, like, military, and, like, it was, it was, like, what a 5-year-old's idea of the Army was, like, the stuff they were saying to each other. But this actually shows, like, planning and order and strategy and things like that, which I thought was cool. Like, it was definitely an uptick in the realism of fiction that we had gotten, if that makes sense. But anyway,
yeah. I mean, and you're totally right. It goes from, they weren't just like, they didn't just have these like little random ideas of doing bad things. It all kind of talks about like the phases that that we had talked about in our free comic book day episode, where this looks a lot more like Phase 6. It just looks like a Phase 6 that Megatron himself is like taking part of. Obvious reasons whenever we get kind of later on into the story and see why the Autobots aren't around yet, because you would think at this point Optimus Prime and the gang would just show up and put a stop to a lot of this, even though that they've been for the most part kind of underground under radar. Something I would like to also point out is we see it's not just New York. Like we get a panel of what looks like or what is Air Force One crashed in Washington D.C. What is that? The Lincoln Monument that it's in front of? At least it kind of looks like it.
Yeah, it looks like that. And I particularly like the dark eyeshadow sadness sure that was on the previous page.
Oh yeah, when
Like,
they
they
got
all-
word.
They all got bad news, and now nobody can see
Like
their
General
eyes.
Hawk was the only one that was like wide-eyed over the whole thing. That's got to be G.I. Joe
He was-
General Hawk. It's got to be.
He was so young and inexperienced and just stunned. He couldn't handle the gravity of the situation.
And then we've got Megatron looking over the sunset, and at all of the work that he's done in the last couple of hours, if that. And then, is this long haul still, or is this Hook still?
Yeah, this is Hook.
Okay, then Hook.
You
What?
can tell by the giant hook on his back.
Well, I can't see it.
Yeah, well, you can tell by the panel where Megatron refers to him directly as Hook. But
He says
No, I'm just
construction has
kidding.
Oh, okay, yeah. I should.
oh shit, this isn't Megatron. This is DX9 Mitron.
This
If
dude,
you look
isn't
at
it
the
though?
bottom of this page.
with the handle or with the trigger on his back.
Anyway, yeah.
I was gonna point it out, but I'm glad you did.
But cha.
Man,
And then Starscream comes flying in and says, "This is how victory feels." Like, I'm pretty sure Starscream didn't put in any work either. Like, I'm sure he's just been kind of flying around telling Thundercracker and Skywarp to do all of the stuff that they need to do.
He actually went to DC.
Oh, Starscream was the one that went to DC?
Yeah, and in fact, he actually references it. Blah, 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 blah,
The
blah.
next page.
So this is how victory feels, and he says Scruffy, and then it says Starscream would expect you to be fighting alongside your brothers. Starscream responds, my men are entirely capable of looking after themselves. Besides, I had some business to take care of in their, quote, nation's capital. To which Megatron says, excellent. But this...
Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying this next part is the most badass shit. Like, he just takes this like cannon off, rips a flag off the fucking building, and starts wiping it down.
Well, I mean, at that point, it's like he does not have anything else to worry about. There's, no Autobots are showing up for, the obvious reason. They're stuck on Cybertron, and Prime's in a comatose state. Then we have, let's see, the next panel. Here's Rumble, who is primarily black with red shoulders, so I'll give you that one. Okay, no, there's some more of the red. Oh, hey, the reflectors are still alive here.
Hey, Dakota, check the Facebook chat.
Check.
Just so you know. Somebody's knocking on my door. I'll be right back.
All right, cool.
Continuity error 3.
Oh, wow. Big continuity error. But cool to see him, I guess. What if that's like the Reflector's twin? Can we just say that? I mean, certainly there's got to be another group of 3 Decepticons that turn into a camera, right? A giant camera.
Sure, yeah. No.
Just keep fansplaining.
Let's see.
I
Yeah,
like
and
seeing
it's so
the
funny.
little humans run past the back of their legs. Like, I think that shit's hilarious.
So are we into? Yeah, we're into we're into issue 3 now. Looking at it, wonder where the break was. But anyways,
I think because whenever you guys had started talking about the tunnels, I just kind of went with it because you guys basically just explained what I was gonna do anyway. So it's cool. But yeah,
well, going back to issue 2, I like the nod to the constant confusion in the fandom of whether Ravage is a dog or a jaguar.
Yeah. And a jaguar, I think, is a much more cat-like creature.
Right.
because it looks like a cat. But yeah,
Yeah, which I mean, that's what he is. Like anybody who says he's a dog obviously doesn't know
right.
basic animal anatomy.
It's like they don't know blue from
Um,
red, is it? Dude, I'm edging it. I'm gonna edge it as much as I can. Because this was my whole arguing point for which cassette was which. Because I saw this before, like I saw like the G1 cartoon or even the animated movie from '86.
oh, okay.
So
Oh, I think I do remember one of your epic arguments on TFW over Frenzy is red, Rumble is blue. And the backwards way of saying that. Because I've been on TFW since like God knows when, and I don't comment too much, but I lurk, and I do seem to recall like
it's a possibility.
your I do seem to recall your username and like being in a pretty heated thread.
Dude, that's
on
all
that.
I stay in on TFW is heated threads. Like
But
I just like to relax in a sauna of nerd rage.
you're like, oh, I'm going to need to refresh my supply of nerd tears.
Pretty much. But it looks like while we're kind of going back to issue 3, they haven't taken out all of the, I don't want to say tunnels, but at least underground areas, because there still are some little pockets of people, and it looks like some more U.S. Air Force guys that had managed to, or no, it's just the one guy that had managed to evade death and capture. Was that the guy that was flying the jet in issue number 1? Because I don't think we really got to look at his. Okay.
No, I mean I can go flip back through it.
I don't think we got to look at his hair. You know what I mean? And like I don't think it is because I think he had like red or blonde or strawberry blonde hair or something like that. However you would describe that in comic book colors.
Yeah, no, okay, he had red eyebrows, so
Yeah,
it's definitely not this guy.
All right, because I was pretty sure like he didn't have enough time to eject after getting swatted by a giant robot.
Yeah, after he decided to go kamikaze against Megatron and got swatted like a fly.
Hey, this guy looks like he's in charge. I'm just going to drive my jet into him. Nope. But anyways, it shows that he's still kind of part of what little resistance of human beings are left, or just what, maybe not quite a resistance. I would call them more of like
just survivors.
Survivors, like a refuge of people, because they're constantly going out and getting supplies, which we saw in the last. Let's see. Yep, and this is where Astro Train ends up driving up in this particular area as well, in which he starts screaming Code Red. Was this from the same? This looks like it may have been the same underground area from earlier, but it could very well be different, because Astro Train's just transforming, breaking up the street, and then causing everything to kind of fall in on itself. So he could just be doing that through all the different stations.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it looks like, because they talk about running drills and being so. Obviously they've been thinking about how to survive Astro Train attacks.
Right, which makes perfect sense. And,
which brings us to the end of issue 3.
Yep. Anything you want to talk about issue 3 before going into issue 4? Because love the very first page, the artwork on it's just awesome.
You guys want to talk about Jesus?
Robo Jesus?
Well, that's what that was about.
Megatron, yeah.
You should have been like, let me tell you about the chosen one, Rodimus.
Oh my god.
So yeah, I like the fact that the guy, the black guy refers to our mystery soldier, who I actually think ends up being Spike. Spoiler.
I don't think it is.
Oh, maybe, I don't know. Yeah. It's we'll find out. We'll find out as we go through the issues.
It looks like he could have been like a distant cousin, though, for sure.
But I like that he references like talking or references how he thought it was a dog, and the guy's like, "That was a jaguar."
Yeah, what did he say? I gotta find the page. He's like,
He's like, "Hell, I didn't expect a hell of a lot from a man who thought a jaguar was a dog."
yeah.
And then the art of confusion. He's like, "That was a jaguar."
Yeah. Oh, Tyrese Gibson.
Yeah, pretty much.
What's it?
Because this was post.
What's the character's name? Epps.
Yes,
I just
Yeah.
imagine that this is the comic version of Epps.
This was after. This came out after the first movie, but before the second movie, if I remember correctly, right?
Yeah, because they wanted to like loop people in who were, kind of brought back into the fold from the movies, but were nostalgic for G1, which is why everything in All Hail Megatron is pretty much straight from the G1 cartoon.
Yeah, well, I noticed, kind of going
with the
back.
exception.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm saying with the exception of two distinctly colored cassette robot men.
Oh.
Yeah, pretty much. But no, I remember, kind of going back to the first issue, whenever the Seekers all transformed and just kind of slid their way into New York. You see them just tearing up the streets and all that. Looked very much like whenever Starscream came flying into that small town with big buildings in Arizona or whatever it was in the first movie.
Oh yeah.
Hey, just real quick, I'm sorry. So the mysterious man that you're talking about, that was a jaguar. That's definitely not Spike. If that's what you're.
Oh, okay.
Well, because if you look, he gets destroyed. He gets crushed. Everyone in that panel dies.
Are you
on the next two pages?
They die?
Well, yeah, because the train, because then the train comes in again, and it's Astro Train, and he collapses the tunnel, and you see him in front of Astro Train, and then it cuts to like the ground collapsing from above ground.
All right. Well,
so I'm assuming that they're implying that everyone in that tunnel was destroyed or was killed in when the structure was destroyed,
or at least whoever was in there, because it looked like they were getting a lot of people to run where they could. But yeah, I mean, they probably did, because I know Spike runs into someone, and I thought they looked somewhat familiar whenever he did. So it could be some of those people.
Well, he has, I think he has his names on his uniform.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
no, this guy isn't Spike. I knew this guy wasn't Spike.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Yeah, because when you see Spike, he's wearing like a vest.
He's all like.
But anyway.
Tactical,
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So issue 4, the very first page, we see Megatron, Decepticons, the world is ours. And again, very nice artwork with a raining texture. That's what happens whenever bad things happen. It just rains. No rhyme or reason to it. And it shows him...
And we get our first look at Blitzwing.
Oh, we do? Oh, yeah, we do. He's just there.
Chilling with his Armada Megatron tank tread shoulders.
Isn't there a third-party company making one with the tank tread shoulders?
I hope not. Isn't
sworn.
Nah, I don't think so. I haven't seen anything, and I try to stay on top of the third-party stuff as much as I can.
Yeah, especially now that your leader is fallen.
Oh, I know. I think a kangaroo eviscerated him.
Mm.
Okay,
he's
yeah.
fine.
See, it looks like
I talked to him yesterday.
It looks like the black guy did escape. The one that was talking to the army guy, or to the Air Force guy, I guess, to be proper.
So are you implying there's only one black guy in New York City?
I am implying
getting
that
here?
I'm assuming his gender, if that's what you're asking.
Apparently, there's only one black guy that survived because he keeps showing up.
I'm sorry. Some people
I know.
Some people might take that serious. I apologize.
It's fine. They can take it serious. It's true.
Oh, well, then I don't apologize. Goddamn it.
Yeah, you gotta stand
Yeah.
by what you said. Except,
Hopefully, it means that. Hopefully it means an uptick in viewership. Controversy always...
All I did was call Dakota racist, so it's not like it's on
That's
me.
it. Yeah, just, you know.
Well, he is from the South. I'm just...
Yeah, you gotta put two and two together.
Hey, just because Matt, is marginally racist doesn't mean everybody from the South is, Greg.
Oh my god.
You know what's better than being racist from the South? Ironhide and Prowl fighting
It
in a
is.
desolate
'Cause I think that's...
building.
Isn't that...
That was a beautiful segue.
Yeah, it really was. So a racist Southerner fighting a cop. Yeah, we'll talk about that. Prime! But Prowl, he was reaching for my gun. Anyways, so yeah, Ironhide and Prowl are arguing. I think about how to...
We're so getting in trouble for this
definitely
episode.
Definitely getting in trouble. Like I think most of our kind of viewer base is gonna enjoy it because I'm sure they know all of our humor. I think
All 7 of them.
through the interwebs. No, man. Episode number 1, issue number 1. It got well, last I checked, like over 100 views on the YouTubes. So
Nice.
yeah, good start. Good start. What about
Yeah, every empire has to start somewhere.
right.
So anywho, I'll stop sidetracking us, and Ironhide has the best "I don't want to eat my beans" face ever when Prowl's pointing his finger in his face.
Right. And doesn't Ironhide hit him? Like, oh yeah, Ironhide hits him. He lifts Prowl's ass off the ground.
The
And
Prowl.
that's whenever Jazz walks up and he's like, "Hey, calm down, guys." Prowl's like, "How come he's afraid of you and not me?" But we'll I guess we'll kind of see that later on whenever we get into... Was it Spotlight Jazz? Is it Spotlight Jazz?
Oh yeah, where he takes on the Predacons all by his lonesome.
Right. And he's like hurt while he's doing it too, if I remember correctly. It's some story that Trax is telling while all this is going on, so hooray for stories that are running together.
I like Trax.
Yeah, he's an alright dude. Never done me any wrong
Seems
personally.
alright. No.
But
Brothers said
So-
but yeah, hey, whatever.
So more Prowl and Jazz with data pads, because apparently that's their thing in this series.
they're the only ones that can be trusted with data pads. What if they're the only Autobots who can read and write? We just don't know it.
The Autobot Command is the only literate, group in the Autobot structure.
Seriously. Because like just below that we see Trailbreaker, and I don't know why Trailbreaker couldn't do something more. I mean, the guy makes freaking force fields.
Well, he's missing a hand, so maybe he could only make half a force field.
Oh, still half a force field is still something, And then shout out to the toy line at the time, Universe. We see Sideswipe and Sunstreaker there. Go buy the toys for everyone who picked this up back in 2008.
With every bit of their toy detailing, like...
Yeah, dude. From the arms,
Like, hey...
you could even take the arms off, like, at those joints, at those little mushroom swivels, if you wanted to. I would know because, like, I immediately did that to take some pictures to recreate this scene several years ago. I want to track these guys down again.
Side note, there's a guy in one of the Facebook groups who's selling, like, every chug he has. So I'll tag you in that if I can find it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Because I'd gotten rid of these two a long time ago when I decided classics just wasn't for me. With the exception of like Wreckers and other random things, but yeah,
But
it
now
definitely
they
would be cool
can
to
go
have
on
them
your
back.
IDW shelf. Now they can go on your IDW shelf.
Yeah, well, that's actually like it's pretty much just a More Than Meets the Eye shelf / Lost Light shelf. Because it's hard to get behind those RID, XRID designs and toys and whatnot. Or not really designs, just the story. It just wasn't as good.
Because they're pretty much all Titan's Return or,
And,
whatever current toy line Hasbro has out.
Pretty much.
So anyways, Bumblebee is a bad driver because he slams into a wall.
And he's got rubber tires, which I mean, I guess the streets in Cybertron are made of metal, but that still doesn't mean anything. Like, I don't think it should. I want to point out before we do get to that, we see Cliffjumper in the background just looking at a blank screen. Keep that in mind for later. But yeah, Bumblebee's a terrible driver. But Wheeljack's good. He's good at it. It looks like they were scouting.
Yeah, it looks like it. Oh, hey.
And then there's a silhouette. Very hot roddy silhouette.
Oh, yeah, okay, I see it. Yeah, I just skipped ahead to your reference to Cliffjumper's blank screen watching.
Oh, yeah. So Cliffjumper's just looking at a screen. There's a slight kind of blip. You see a little light come on and go off, which was apparently, I think Wheeljack explained it. It was like someone had to be monitoring it at all times because it was just ever so slightly, just the slightest bit of a blink, to paraphrase, I believe. Then we go back to Jazz and Ironhide kind of out on the balcony. And is this where, let's see, before I get too ahead of myself.
Well, Ironhide's lamenting the fact that they're in the situation they are. And then Ironhide asks Jazz asks Jazz what he's hiding. And Jazz looks very concerned.
Yeah, because I don't think they know that there was and I guess I'll go ahead and spoil that a traitor in the midst. Or maybe, no, they did know. That's right, they did know, and we'll kind of get to that later on. But so they're trying to figure out who was the one that sold them out, right? And was Spotlight Mirage, was that one that we kind of skipped last week?
Yeah, that one.
Because it was mostly a dream, but some of that, yeah.
It's a weird one because he has a Decepticon symbol, and it's been a really long time since I read Spotlight Mirage, so I do apologize. But
no, it's fine. It was a very weird story. Symbol.
Yeah, like it didn't seem to fit in continuity at all. But Simon Furman was like, "Just you wait," and then all his threads had to be tied up in one.
Yeah. In which I think that kind of later on came to, Mirage has quote unquote the site, so there is that. We do see Jazz kind of tell Hyde to just leave him alone, and we see Mirage and Trailbreaker just kind of standing around doing nothing. We got Sideswipe and Sunstreaker sitting beside each other,
looking quite mopey.
Yeah, well, I mean. Sunstreaker looks more mopey than Sideswipe, and Sideswipe's the one missing the arm, you know what I mean? That, I think, is kind of funny, but I guess you can only look mopey with two arms. Then Ironhide comes storming past the both of them, in which Cliffjumper asks if he's looking for some trouble, and he said he got a signal from Wheeljack, and hey, let's go do it, and Sunstreaker wants to, and Ironhide's like, no, I need you here. He said, I want you to keep an eye on someone. And or not on someone, I just want someone I can trust keeping watch. And it kind of pans back to Mirage. Because, we have a reason to not trust him. Thanks to that Spotlight issue that never tied into anything, that was kind of out of continuity, and that was, I think, treated as a dream. Hooray.
And then we have humans.
Yeah, back to the boring humans.
Yay.
And nobody likes humans, but then we have a woman. We have a woman slapping a man that might trigger some men.
Yeah, dude. It works out. And this dude asked was just leave me alone. And then she slaps him and says people's lives are at stake. Like, this guy was probably, let's see, looked like he maybe sold hardware equipment. Just looking at his attire, you know what I mean? Like a vest with a couple of pouches on it, and cargo pants with, I think, 2 mini pouches on them. Maybe he was going on a fishing trip or something. Guy just, didn't really look military.
So most of the employees at your Ace Hardware in Louisiana were tactical vests and pants?
No, this kind of tactical vest.
That's a
Oh,
tactical
dude,
vest.
it's a vest. Like at best, it's a vest. Cause look, he's got like just a regular
Okay.
like t-shirt on under it. Doesn't have
Name
just doesn't have any
badge.
of the padding. I don't know.
Back to
Yeah,
Cybertron.
back to Cybertron. We see Bumblebee and Wheeljack who have taken to foot at this point, um, and they finally get to this mysterious stranger who looks more and more like Hot Rod until he finally looks exactly like Hot Rod.
With a gun
Yeah,
to its
with
head.
a gun to his head and Ironhide like barreling through a wall, knocking him back. And let's see, there's Cliff Jumper and it says, Hot Rod, Hal, what are you doing on Cybertron? It is you, this is incredible. And he says, it worked, you got my message, it worked. Wait till all the others hear about this. And then there's some confused looks of messages, others. And then Hot Rod goes in to tell them the story about his message about how he and his team, the team that he's with, I guess, were shot down by Decepticons and had been trapped with no way off the planet and had almost completely given up hope until these very banged up Ironhide, Wheeljack, Bumblebee, and Cliffjumper were here to rescue him. I think he...
Yeah, I don't think he properly assessed the situation.
Because like even Bumblebee's like missing like half of one of his horns. Ironhide's like windshield's all cracked. Wheeljack's all scuffed up. Looks like he's missing one of his little wings.
I only wish they would lead into a flashback to show us how Hot Rod ended up on Cybertron.
I thought...
Well, lucky for you, Greg, you can pick up the trade paperback of Spotlight Drift.
Exactly.
Well, actually, they do a flashback of
I
it
think
on...
in issue 5, like in this next issue.
Yeah, the very next page. But
It shows Hot Rod sitting aboard. Is this the Xanthium? Yeah, it's the Xanthium, which is the Wrecker's famed ship. And we see
Call back to Marvel G1.
Do what?
It's a callback to Marvel G1.
Yeah, that was was that G not G was that Marvel UK with like Target 2006?
Yeah, because the Wreckers basically only showed up in Marvel UK.
Yeah, dude. Simon Furman just blessed us with these characters that later on Nick Roche and James Roberts would just... Oh, sorry guys. I didn't bring the lotion with me.
I love the basic reason why the Wreckers were created is Simon Furman wanted to take all the non-show toys and make them badasses.
And it worked, honestly. And then including like Impactor. Like Impactor, there was no G1 Impactor toy. He just made them to make them. Like that's something I wouldn't mind. Like if one of these companies like if Fans Project, they're like, not to get off too big on the toy tangent, like with their retro line that they had, what was that, like a combiner or something like that? Just did an Impactor. I'd buy it. But anyways, we see them all sitting at a control panel. There's Blur, let's see, Blaster, Hot Rod, Perceptor, Springer, and they've all got their arms like plugged into these like control panels, I guess. This I like to think was because then there's another shadowy figure up, like standing in the middle of the command terminal, and we do come later to find out it was, let's see, after the Xanthium falls into a trap, there's a bunch of ships around, and they fell for it. The blah blah blah. There's mass panic. Springer's eyes are glowy. Looks like they're all feeling the pain of the ship, it seems. And this is another thing. Like I wonder how they all got together like this. But anyways, the Xanthium crashes, and let's see, Hot Rod's telling them all about this, because now at this point, Jazz, Prowl, and it looks like the rest of the Autobot gang, including one of the potential traitors, has showed up at this point. And then we have Of course they didn't, kid. I told you messages are a waste of time here, now. And then the next panel, we see Roadbuster scraping the top of a corridor with Blur, Perceptor, Cup chewing on what looks to be a cigar, but we later find out is a cigar, Blaster, Drift, and Springer. And this is probably one of the most iconic, I think, pages in this entire story. For me, it is, at least. I really like the way that this turned out with Cup and his wreckers asking who's in charge of this mess.
I can dig it.
Yeah.
I like that. I like Hup and his records.
Yeah. Cup
Yeah, and this I think this is actually the first appearance of Cup after his spotlight. So
Yes, it is.
Oh, I think we missed. No, we didn't. Never mind. That's coming up. Good.
Let's see.
Good. One of my favorite pages is about to come up in the Transformers comics.
All right. So leading us to the next page, we see
That's it right here.
General
That's my
Hawk
favorite
saying,
page.
Colonel, he's here. And then the Colonel says, send him in. And Hawk, no interruptions. And then here we have, he says, Sir, Commander. And then that's whenever the Colonel hugs him. And the guy that walked in says, good to see you, Dad. And he says, you too, boy. Was that your favorite page?
No, I was just kidding.
I didn't know if that pulled on your heartstrings a little bit, Greg.
My dad was killed. My dad was killed by a robot that turns into a train.
In Nam.
Back in the Korea War.
So anyways, the next page shows them talking about, he was like, I'm gonna call him Sparkplug. Sparkplug's asking Spike, because this is the only way I can do this quickly. If he's talked to his mother, and Spike was like, Dad, and then Sparkplug was like, well, and then Spike said it was a bit hard from the field, and he was talking about like family and all this other nonsense, and then finally he gives Spike a picture of Megatron, like a mugshot of Megatron. Somehow they found it. Like, I don't know if Megatron was just like leaned up against a wall, and they just took a picture real quick and then like emailed it. But I don't know. That's something I thought was kind of funny. Does it see? But the writing, it looks like it says Mega Man, like off to the side. It says I think it says like something like code name or something like that.
Oh, which picture?
It's the one like right after whenever
Oh, yeah, I'm looking right at it. Derp.
Yeah. But just from kind of where I'm at, it looks like it says Mega Man, which is funny. Another, I guess, Easter egg. Well, not really an Easter egg. Well, I guess kind of an Easter egg, but just like nothing pertaining to, unless there was like some eBay listings that had Transformers Mega Man.
You're talking about just the picture of Megatron that he's pointing at? And it's like, he's the target?
Let's see. It shows Spike, like it's Spike's holding the picture of Megatron, and then the next panel you see like the top half of that picture.
Oh, yeah. It does say codename Mega Man, yeah. Because when they do the close-up on it, it's all squiggly lines.
Yep.
Good call. I've never noticed that.
I literally just noticed it, so I mean I can't really I can't say too much. But so anyways, he sends his own son out into the field under the cover of night, I guess I should say. And then like that's another kind of like dark-eyed page, because it looks like Hawk and one of the other commanders or generals is talking about like, let's see, he says, can you think of anyone better? And he said, of course not, but even if it works, it's a suicide mission. I thought the Colonel would have stepped in, tried to stop it, and then Hawk said, stop it, with as a question, and then it shows Colonel Witwicky with heavy shadowy eyes saying he ordered it. So, back to robots, hooray! Looks like Cup is trying to assess the situation with Jazz, and I love the whole cigar thing, cigar, whatever. But it's still pretty awesome. Shows like that Cup's that old guy, you know, that been through Robo Nam a couple of times. So let's see. So he's him and Jazz are arguing, and at which point I think Springer's trying to show a little bit of muscle, and at one point Jazz just like promptly puts him on the ground, and then Blair tries and then work out, and then he's pointing a gun straight at Cup's face, and Cup's just sitting there with a grin on his face and says flops, like nothing to it, didn't flinch. Cup was the only one that didn't move, and Blair and Springer got their asses handed to them. But, you know, shows them. And then it shows Mirage had Drift and Blaster covered. Which even then, like, I really don't think that would have been too much of a good fight for Mirage. All things considering, you know, Drift. But, still. Then we go back to humans. Looks like Spike's getting on a boat. And, well, it looks like Spike and a team are getting on a boat. And they're just, like, rowing their way onto the battlefield. And then, let's see, some lights on them, and we see Ratbat, who is a very, very faithful representation of his cassette. We see, like, the MC60 and then, like, the A side. He used to be a senator at one point. All of that fun stuff. But then it looks like Ratbat kind of takes them down, and then all of their signatures flatline on the screen that they had back at command. And that's whenever Colonel Witwicky storms out, really, like, pushing a bunch of papers off to the side. Like, I think, like, even though, like, okay, he thinks he just lost his son, like, that, okay, that's, like, bad progress. Am I right? But, anyways, back on Cybertron, Hound is looking over Optimus Prime's body with a very scary face. He's almost dropping his cigar. You don't want to keep that in your mouth there, bud. Said, let's see, what did he say? He said he called him a stupid kid. That's just, you know, your leader. And then it looks like Jazz and Cup are talking about what all has been going on since Cup has been otherwise dispatched. And then that's whenever Jazz kind of keys him in and says that there was a traitor on the team. And Cup was like, "Are you sure?" And Jazz is like, "We just don't know who it is." So, anyways, that brings Cup up to the current hostility on Team Prime. And then back on Earth, looks like the Decepticons made a very Decepticon base from G1 looking structure, which goddamn, they work quick. In which we see Megatron walking into with some text of like Cup asking Megatron, "Has it, doesn't he?" And then Jazz saying yes. Yes, he does, and then we see Megatron holding on to the Autobot Matrix of Leadership. Gasp. Dun,
Sorry,
dun,
I was surprised there.
And then, oh my god, back out to the humans. It shows Colonel Witwicky saying he just killed his son, and then let's see. Apparently he's talking to... I guess he's talking to Hawk about it. Yeah, looks like he's talking to Hawk. And then... very heartfelt page here, I think, for people that I guess are have a close like, father-son kind of relationship thing going on. Talking about he wanted to do all this because Daddy does. He wanted to do all that, he wanted to, doesn't drink because Dad doesn't. Likes to work on cars because Dad does. And then wants to be in the military because Dad does. And then you see the big shadowy eyes. And then, he's like, now I have to call my wife and tell her that our son's never going to come home again. And it's my fault. So from there, we kind of see like another page afterwards. Looks like a bunch of waves. And then it kind of closes in a little closer. And then we see Spike get up out of the water. Another gasping moment. So, that was, what was that, issue 5? Yeah, that was issue 5. Anything of note for you guys there?
Well, let's see.
I like how badass they make Jazz look in that single page. where he flips Springer over, somehow is able to smack Blur, who's supposed to be the fastest Cybertronian, like, in existence, and then pulls a gun on Cup.
Who coincidentally names the current Jazz toy.
Yeah, and that well, let's see. No, I don't think that. Well, I think that they would have actually had access to that at that point in time. It was 2000. I think this was around 2009. I think IDW would have, at least the artist would have had some of that kind of inside access. So it makes sense.
Oh no! Well, they named it Special Ops Jazz because they couldn't just do Jazz at the time.
Right? No, but in the comic, they did.
Well, I'm sure that was just that it was either coincidence or it was one of those little like cheeky things.
Hints. I want to call it a hint. I think it's more of a hint.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which, oddly enough, being that there's so many people switching their alt modes, like the Seekers are F-15s now, which was the first continuity error. For all the fans that are listening that caught on that I started with the second continuity error. And you have Sunstreaker and Sideswipe their toy forms, and then Jazz, for whatever reason, is one of the only bots that kept his robot in alt mode from the IDW issues prior to All Hail Megatron.
Yeah. I bet it was because he didn't have a toy, though. Because if you notice, like, the Seekers look just like the Seekers that, were using the MP03 mold. The first Masterpiece Seekers mold with the little, like, hip skirt things. So.
And they have some detailing from the classic Seekers, too, on their hips.
Right.
Well, the last show, like the issues we covered, didn't they have like the movie alt mode?
It was. I think it was an F-22.
Yeah.
It definitely wasn't the robot mode. Yeah.
Yeah, they had the F-22 alt mode through the first, I guess, phase of the IDW universe, and then their alt modes were a weird kind of amalgamation of their, F-15 robot mode, but with like curvier lines, and then the F-23 sections for their wings and robot mode.
Shout out to Gear.
Yeah, I was trying to avoid just making this a partial third-party podcast in addition to being a comics-based podcast.
Well, I mean, I think the two totally go hand in hand. The comics and the toys, even to some degree, because I think that's what a lot of like the chug scaled third-party companies have kind of been scratching our backs with the comic-inspired designs. Like iGear, we talked about the cup with the Cygar. So.
Yep, with the head that doesn't look like a man with dementia.
Yeah.
If you look at a Generations Cuphead, I guess he's supposed to be screaming, but the way it's molded, it just looks like an old man going through the throes of dementia.
He's
and
totally breathing out of his mouth.
Screaming at the perceived reality that he's living in.
Yeah.
That's funny.
But issue 6, I think that's what we're on. 6. It starts with Cup and Jazz, kind of finishing their conversation of, Megatron quote unquote winning, finally going and doing it, and it looks like they have a disagreement. Yeah, they definitely have a disagreement, because Jazz thinks that Cup and his group are militant, and which point Cup just kind of gets defensive over. He says, "We get the job done," and from what I hear, so do you. And I guess that's kind of like a throwback to, again, like that Spotlight Jazz issue that we probably won't cover, but we already did basically cover all of it. If I'm not mistaken, wasn't wasn't like Trax blind or something in that issue, but he was just telling it as he remembered it, or something along those lines. Like that's why he didn't really recognize that it was Jazz. So either way. Then back on Earth, let's see. Megatron is in Israel because, you know, you're going to attack the whole planet, United States, and then I guess Israel is the next place. And it looks like Megatron's adjusting the power outage on his fusion cannon. And I guess this is kind of a flashback to a conversation he had with Starscream. Starscream asked where to now. And then Megatron notes, he said, again, I find you alone. Are you a commander or... And that's whenever Starscream interrupts him. Says, did you enjoy the parade? I know I did. And he asked, parade? And he said, our grand march of destruction through this city, all that show, your beautiful speeches. Megatron, world conqueror, warrior, king, poet. Which, we'll see a little bit more about that poet side later, way later on. But still, I like to think that the seeds were kind of planted in this particular book.
Let's not give Shane McCarthy that much credit.
You don't want to give him that? Well, yeah. I think that at least Roberts was paying attention. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we'll give that guy credit because, I mean, he's done the most world building for IDW out of anybody. You know,
I think Barber's done a lot too, but yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this could be like a whole nother episode in and of itself, but I just feel like Roberts has done the most world building, you know, outside of the like Hasbro dictated, you know, storylines. Like I don't know, but anyways, I don't want to go on too far a tangent, but so anyways, yeah, Megatron's a poet.
Yeah. we'll kind of cover in about 3 or 4 more episodes, depending. I think, just depending on what all kind of goes down. But it shows in this particular issue, Megatron and Starscream having a very, or at least the flashback. It looks like this is what Megatron is kind of thinking about as he's blowing up the nation of Israel. Like just the talk that he had with Starscream, you know, they're talking about the endless war and how it was all over, and they're just here to, you know, the end is basically just killing humans, and you know, very very heated, very heartfelt, I think.
Yeah. Well, this is one of my favorite conversations between Starscream and Megatron in the series because it gives a glimpse into like Megatron understanding the beast he's created, because I think he even says, you know, like we've assembled the worst of the worst, and if we don't keep the weapon pointed in a direction, then it's basically going to cannibalize itself. And then we see that in the next page with Skywarp and Bombshell
in Beijing. And the I guess the ruins of Beijing, but this panel with Skywarp and Bombshell kind of arguing, like Skywarp feels like he's done more work, and it does show them kind of arguing, because like that's there's no, I think this is too easy for them, for what the Decepticons are kind of used to. And then let's see. I'm trying to see where the argument kind of makes its conclusion at. Because Skywarp was insinuating that, you know, Bombshell was weak because he was an Insecticon, that he was quote unquote a bug.
Right, and I mean it alludes to the Insecticons being an experiment, which you know, we'll get more on that later in the series when we see what the Autobots are up against on Cybertron.
Yeah, just Skywarp kind of essentially sucker punching him with his null ray, if that you consider a sucker punch. And Bombshell's aiming on him, and Skywarp just says, "Do it." And that's whenever Thundercracker pops in and says, You take on one of us, you'll take on all of us. And Bombshell was like, you think your Seekers are Megatron's elite guard. He was saying not anymore. Things of that sort. And then it looks like Skywarp is about to teleport them, but I think they ended up they all ended up winning. The Insecticons did, at least.
Yeah, which I like. I like this because it's a nod to the G1 cartoon, where they're like, even though the Insecticons were Decepticons, they still seem to be their own separate entity.
Yeah. And then I think this shows, the very last panel and on this particular page, it shows Skywarp Skywarp and Thundercracker kind of talking, and Thundercracker was definitely very kind of, I don't know, bored, upset, but Skywarp wanted to kind of know what was wrong, and Thundercracker was like, well, nothing. He was like, come on, that was old times. That was just like old times. And then Skywarp got frustrated again. He said, I'm starting to feel like I'm all alone out here, in which they're just kind of stands there. And I think we see this as kind of like a start for, Thundercracker as we know in current comics.
Right, and I mean, it's also a callback to Thundercracker's G1 bio, which a lot of fans seem to have never read, because it even says that Thundercracker has his doubts about the Decepticon cause.
Right.
So the storyline that we've seen with Thundercracker through IDW is actually got its roots back in the G1 toy. But I'd say I don't know what you guys think on it, but I'd say 70% of Transformers fans just kind of take the G1 cartoon as the end-all be-all of the characterization for most of these guys, and Thundercracker and Skywarp were just thugs in the cartoon.
Yeah, and that's how I knew Thundercracker, I guess, while I was reading these, because I think at this point I was kind of getting the DVD box sets and stuff like that, or at least I know I was YouTubing stuff for sure. But you're right. Then again, I never bought a G1 Thundercracker toy either. So, but that is really cool. Appreciate that, Dick.
Hey, I think I'm finding my groove on this podcast. The torchbearer of useless information and trivia.
Yeah. Greg is definitely our errors spotter outer, for sure.
It's not an error. It's alternative facts.
Alternative facts. Oh my god. The next couple of pages is Cup and I think Jazz are still kind of going through the end of their, I guess, sort of conversation. They look like they're a little more calmed down. Then Prowl walks up. Jazz was about to ask. He said, "Are you going to tell them about the Matrix?" In which case, Cup was like, "No, not yet." I think at this point, Prowl is just like, this is the end. But something I did like was Cup's kind of dialogue over, an image, very well detailed image of the Matrix here. It says Megatron can't destroy it. It's older than any of us. As long as we have Prime, the line can't be broken. He thinks Prime's dead. He thinks we've been set adrift. For all of recorded history, a Prime has guided Cybertron, a leader that represented an ideal. A leader chosen by the Matrix. Our belief in something greater than ourselves is what sets us apart from the Decepticons. And at which point he says, as the war rages, lines blare, promises are broken to each other, to ourselves. The Matrix is our way back. So,
which wasn't this like? I mean, aside from the panel of Megatron holding the Matrix from the last issue, wasn't All Hail Megatron the first appearance of the Matrix in the IDW storyline proper? Because
Prime, the first time it was actually physically shown.
Right, because I mean, I don't think it was ever shown that Prime had the Matrix in.
No.
Yeah, and
Prior to the whole Nova Prime thing, remember?
right, because I mean, he had in all the Asian series, he didn't have the Matrix, or at least it wasn't referred to, and then Stormbringer and all that. So, unless I'm misremembering all the stuff that we talked about in the last episode, this is like the first appearance of the Matrix in the IDW universe.
Right. I thought it appeared whenever Optimus was fighting Nova Prime and like Galvatron and all of them. I was pretty sure that he had kind of taken it out of his chest at that point, but didn't. I at least thought they showed it off during that story arc, during the end of the expansion.
What say you?
Yeah, with the Nova Prime and the Dead Matrix? Is that what we're talking about? Or the fake Matrix? Sorry, I kind of spaced out there for a second. You're talking about the end of the expansion.
Well, we were talking about like the first time that we actually see the Matrix. I could have sworn we saw it at the end of expansion.
Oh, I don't know, man. Hold on.
Greg's comic book memory can only store one story arc at a time. So once he read all Hail Megatron, everything else just kind of floated out into the ether.
No, someone just sent me it. So I just got an email I had to read. I'm sorry. I kind of zoned out for a minute. Let's see what I can find here. Just talk amongst yourselves.
All right. Well, while he's gonna.
Here we go.
Oh, okay.
So we have an angry Sunstreaker looking at Mirage, which spoiler alert, that's ironic.
Isn't it though? Because I think Ironhide's been walking around like trying to get people against Mirage at this point, because we see him talking to Roadbuster, which is after Cup has already told everyone to follow their chain of command, and everyone agrees, and Cup's like, look, the ship's never going to take off. We fix Prime and then we regroup, and that's the current state of what we're doing right now as Autobots. But then we see Ironhide and Roadbuster talking, and Roadbuster's basically just like, all I can think about is just getting my hands on one of them. In which case Ironhide, says Decepticons, and Roadbuster's like, yeah, and they both kind of say, yeah. So Roadbuster was pretty frustrated that he didn't get to fight back during that whole ordeal, because Roadbuster's a pretty big guy. He definitely lives up to the whole Wreckers standard. And that's whenever Ironhide says, Roadbuster, what would you say if I told him, in which case he gets cut off? And Roadbuster's like, what? And then Roadbuster's looking off in the distance, and he sees this like horribly disfigured
Shadow.
Object. Yeah, shadow, silhouette with like 4 eyes and then some other glowy bits. And apparently that's what scares Roadbuster. Or at least that's his emote. Yeah, Cup! Like, what's Grandpa gonna do to your scary monster? That you know what I mean? And then that's whenever we see the Swarm. Yeah,
which, I mean, not for nothing, I don't know what the general fan reaction to the Swarm was, because, I don't know, it was during one of my anti-internet sabbaticals that I was reading this. But I actually like the look of the Swarm. I like how it obviously incorporates the Insecticon colors, but it
very
just
disfigured.
showed,
like you could tell they were failed experiments.
Right.
But yeah, I agree. Something I really do like about this though is they ask how many is there, and it's like just one. And it says Jazz is like, it can't see us, we can't let it get back to the others, and Cup says taken care of. And then Jazz says, what? And then Cup says, it's taken care of. And that's when Springer leans in and says, Drift. And then Drift's just standing.
This is...
What's up?
My favorite.
Yeah.
This is when I said my favorite part was coming up. This 2 pages right here. But anyway.
Drift's just standing there, and he says hello to it, and then it starts hissing at him, in which case all you see, like, the change from, like, the first kind of panel to the, I guess, third, is you see the sword out, you see shit dripping off of the sword with little, swishy lines, and it's missing a head, or its head's, like, falling, and some more stuff's kind of gushing out from where his head was attached. And Drift's just sitting there smiling. It looks like another one pops out, and he turns his head to the side, and there's Perceptor with a sniper rifle, just, kind of crouched. And Greg, yeah, I totally agree. Like, these 2 pages are just so awesome.
Well, just the part where he's like, that was scary. Perceptor scary. When did Perceptor become scary?
Cliff Jumper was like,
and
that was so cool.
Yeah, that's my favorite part of this whole segment of the story.
Yeah. Badass Perceptor and Drift.
Just taking advantage of that confused dog look articulation.
Right. But very, very awesome. I do, man. I really did like this. Kind of cemented that they were worthy of that whole badass character sort of thing. Whenever Cup's like, all right, let's go. Time to go. Pans back. It looks like Megatron's beating the shit out of Armels. I'm guessing he's still in Israel. Like, I don't know where he is at this, but yeah, he's got to still be in Israel because it's kind of going back to his conversation with Starscream. And this is a nice, like, 2-page sort of graphic too. I would like to point that out for people who don't have the books, but more of that kind of heartfelt conversation that he did have with Starscream. And then after Megatron, I guess, is done brewing on it and thinking about it, that's whenever Blitzwing lands and says, "We were looking everywhere for you," and he said, "I wish to be alone." And he said, to think, which obviously we just kind of saw all of that. And it shows him just walking away from all of this destruction, saying these creatures are of no threat to me. And it kind of pans to a room in France, and a couple of old and looks like rich guys talking. Let's see, they're talking about money, blah, blah, blah. Looks like grandkids. Glasses walks in and hands a file, or sets a file down. And I think they're talking about, like, what's going on over in the U.S., because, like, shit hasn't hit the fan in their particular country just yet. But this looks like, I guess it's just other world leaders talking about New York must be destroyed. And it looks like it's I think they were talking about, like, dropping a nuke on it, something like that. Which makes sense. Issue number 6. So other than having a fangasm over Perceptor and Drift, anyone have anything they want to add?
Yeah, that was my one favorite. That was the one part that stood out to me about this one.
Yeah.
One thing I noticed in the conversation with Megatron and Starscream, the last one that we just saw, is Starscream has a line where, let me see, he's like, "Who's it gonna be? Scourge?" and question mark. And I think that is I think that is the first time we ever hear that name in the IDW universe.
Right.
Unless he was mentioned during the exploits of the Arc 1, but I know Cyclonus, Galvatron, Geoxys, and Nova Prime were specifically mentioned as members of the crew, but I don't think Scourge was ever mentioned.
But see, he may not have been mentioned, but I can't help but think he was part of that crew, maybe? Or no, maybe he wasn't. Maybe Galvatron just recruited him, like, later on in a story we'll talk about at another time, perhaps. But yeah, you may be right, because I know, like, Scourge and sweeps were made, because there were a lot of sweeps, and flashing forward, Whirl kills a bunch of them, and it kind of tricks Cyclonus into thinking that one of them was Scourge. So
Right, and that was
new of Scourge.
that was after another storyline we'll be discussing in the future.
Right. So I don't know. Possibly.
So, all right, so we're at the end of issue 6, going into issue 7
with a bunch of looking like they're trying to beat down a. Looks like this is happened kind of back in the day, because it looks like they're all. You see the words "they're almost in," and then it shows the Seekers walking with Megatron, or Mitron. Was that who you called him, Greg? I can't keep up with all the third-party Megatrons.
All right. For all intents and purposes, it's Megatron.
But it says, let's see who's saying that. Thundercracker, I guess, is saying close to 3,000 of them out there was eventually going to happen. And let's see. I think someone was asking. It looks like it was Thundercracker asking Megatron if I may be so bold, and Megatron says, "You may not." He says, our own kind, obscene, twisted malfunctions, at least kill them. This is torture. And again, Thundercracker's just kind of like screaming, I guess, with robotic veins coming out of his throat at this point, our own kind. Which I think kind of alludes to how we saw Thundercracker in the last issue, with how he was just kind of over it seemed. So there was that.
Yeah, it seems more that Thundercracker is, he's questioning the Decepticon cause because, he's obviously thinking Megatron, just sees them all as expendable tools. Thundercracker, is like, dude, we've done something terrible here.
Right. And at that point, Megatron walks up to the scientist in charge of the station, and the scientist has told him that the odds of success was 1 in 3,000, and obviously, or 1 in 1,000, excuse me, and obviously there were 3,000 of them, so at least 1 out of every 1,000. There were 3 that were normalized, so to speak, that knew their name, knew what their purpose was, and could kind of act and react accordingly. So,
just to answer
Oh, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Joe, just to answer your question. That was the first mention of Scourge, and then the first appearance of Scourge in the sweeps is actually in the Coda issues to All Hail Megatron.
Okay.
Cool.
So, yeah.
Dude, I particularly like this page where Bombshell is revealed, to Megatron. Just because the single word answers, which kind of shows that, even though he's highly intelligent, he's not a fully functional robot, so to speak.
Right.
Or maybe I'm misreading it. Maybe it's maybe he's just so intelligent that he doesn't feel the need to mince words. But when Megatron asks him his purpose, and he says torment.
Right.
It's one of my favorite pages in the series, actually.
Yeah, it says, do you know your name, Bombshell? Do you know where you are, Cybertron? Do you know why you're created, what your purpose is? Yeah. It was, man, and it was just it was a nice reuse of, I guess, art, which we do see every now and again, but the twisted kind of head, and then he sits it back normal, and he kind of twists it again and sits it back normal. I don't know, it was just it showed how creepy the Insecticons are, or at least Bombshell in particular. But this next page, this is actually one of my favorite, with Roadbuster in the middle, and you've got this kind of convoy of Autobots, but Roadbuster being so big, a couple of people can just kind of sit on top of him while he's driving, which I think Jazz may be a little too big for this picture too, because it looks like he's about the same size as Springer. But mass shifting. I think we already talked about that. But it shows Cup and Jazz kind of going over everything. it shows this is where we get a more in-depth look at what happened and why and how they ended up on Cybertron. So it shows, let's see, they're in a command room. They're all talking about it. And looks like they said they had found where the Decepticons were kind of hiding out. Let's see. Jazz is saying they weren't laying low. There had been a power struggle, at which point Cup asked Starscream, and Jazz confirmed. Said he'd made a play. There had been a split, and they were scattered. Which I think this kind of falls back on the Asian stories. Because we did kind of see that with Starscream making a split and trying to take down Megatron at every last turn. So some of that was there, but then there's some of this that just I'm assuming this is all got to be after the whole expansion arc, and just another, I guess, kind of battle. But I like seeing Cliffjumper here, all armed to the teeth, with his with like 3 guns and ridiculous amounts of ammunition. So looks like they're all getting ready to go into the fight. And Jazz is talking about how they were so desperate for it. They were itching for the fight. Prowl looks like his universe toy still. And then he said it happened quick. They were outnumbered, off balance, and they were all just kind of at the bottom of what looked like a crater. And says they were strong, unified. They had a purpose I hadn't seen in forever, says Jazz. It shows them all, like, again, they're just getting their asses handed to them collectively at the bottom of this. And then that's whenever, let's see, Jazz said there was hope for the briefest of moments, and then Cup asked, and then he said, Devastator. They'd found a way to tip the scales. Said we fell, all of us, and then let's see, it shows Thundercracker ripping off Sideswipe's arm, so we know how that happened.
Skywarp.
Megatron shooting Optimus. Oh, Skywarp. My bad. My mouth was working faster than my brain just then. That happens a lot. Megatron's blasting Optimus' stomach, which probably is how he... Okay, yeah. The next page, it says, Jazz called ripping the Matrix wires and all out of Prime's chest. When Prime still has like a twinkle in his eye. But I'm pretty sure that's a robot tear. Let's see. Then we kind of go back to present, where Cup tells them to take a short break, and that's whenever Jazz is asked any signs of drift or blur, and Cup's like, no, won't be unless something's wrong. They're gone. Which I would only, I think they had kind of showed some of that later on, but I'm not 100% sure. Just all the, I guess, fun drift and blur kind of had out there, scouting ahead and whatnot. But before we get to that, if there even is that to get to, we see Sunstreaker walking into a room with Sideswipe following him. Sideswipe says we need to talk, and let's see. Him and Sunstreaker, looks like they kind of start to have a heated argument a little bit, and Sunstreaker's telling him to kind of back off, and Sideswipe's just like, no, you really don't know what I'm trying to talk to you about. You and Ironhide, you're really making shit worse. And then we have another kind of backflash to what Sunstreaker had to go through with the Mognation and becoming a headmaster. And then Sunstreaker gets pissed off because he's like, no, you don't get to do this to me. This I thought was a very heartfelt kind of 3 pages. With Sunstreaker's kind of frustration with Sideswipe kind of trying to act like his caregiver or something like that. And saying that Sideswipe has no right to bring that because doesn't know what happened.
Just side note, like the flashback page with, Scorponok, Hunter, Sideswipe's head, and what is his name, Dante. Like that is some fantastic art in my mind.
Yeah, it really is. both line art and colors. Whoever did this page in particular, they did a really, really good job.
Yeah, and I mean it's like it's the first time we see Sunstreaker actually have, well, one, any significant amount of lines in the series, and two, just like the damage that experience did to him.
Yeah, you could tell it really broke him. Especially whenever he was enough to make him kind of snap on Sideswipe like that, for sure. But back to another flashback. Jazz is still kind of telling Cup about what had happened. Jazz, we were already beaten and broken. That's whenever they said, there was Schrader in our midst, and let's see, it shows them kind of walking off into a space bridge, which I guess the space bridge came out of nowhere because it doesn't really. It says they had a new machine, one that the Insecticons had created. So I guess they do kind of sort of talk about it, but that being, I think, the first time. What's up?
Which is a great story device for explaining any new technology that we hadn't seen in the IDW verse, like, up to that point. It's like, oh, hey, space bridges. Yeah, Insecticons made it. Like, oh, Gestalt's. Like, the Insecticons made it. Not that they say that here, but, like, it's just like, oh, how did all this come to be? It's like, Insecticons. Idiot savant Insecticons made everything.
Yeah. But then it explains that while they were all kind of going through, Prime did something on the other side. He ended up destroying the machine from the other side, so that way I guess they couldn't follow him. And it looks like Dirge and that weird, like, scientific robot guy were kind of stuck there with them. But I guess they didn't. Well, I know nothing happened to Dirge. We see that super later on, but it just. I think we were all kind of led to assume that they got the crap beat out of them. But we never really saw anything concrete, so. But back to kind of present times. Shows Sunstreaker. Okay, yeah, Sunstreaker's kind of coming out, and Ratchet and Ironhide are, I guess, sort of talking. I'm sure Ironhide was doing the same thing he was trying to do, trying to get people against Mirage. And Ironhide's kind of really getting on Sunstreaker's case, like, hey, what's up? What's going on? And Sunstreaker doesn't want to talk about it. And then, so anyways, they say, you and me, he thinks we're aggravating the situation with Mirage, dividing the group. He thinks you're taking too far. And then that's whenever Ironhide kind of loses it, and he's like, he thinks I'm taking it too far. So he walks up to Mirage, slams him against the wall, punches him in the face, and then punches him again in the face. And Mirage, like, the whole time, Mirage is like, look, I'm not going to fight you. Like, I'm not going to fight you. And Ironhide still just...
This is a callback to what?
To G1.
Except for it was...
Cliff Jumper was the one who was always suspicious of Mirage in G1.
Yep.
Oh, I mean, they're both red, so it's fine.
So, tell you what, looking at Mirage's mug, he won't be so pretty anymore.
Yeah, dude, like, his face is kind of cracked open. He's got green blood from his eyes and purple blood from his mouth and nose. So it looks like his eyes were leaking a little bit. But Ironhide's talking about how he doesn't deserve to wear the Autobot badge, and then he just starts, like, laying his fist into it, something fierce, to where it essentially gets curled up. It looks like, with his chassis. And then he kind of gives him another sucker punch on the way to the ground, twice. And then that's whenever Sunstreaker and Let's see, Ratchet, Trax, Wheeljack, Trailbreaker. They're all kind of there. Wow, dude, what did you do? So that's the end of issue number 7. Spears, we're getting some
Yeah?
on your end.
Spirits, yeah, you sound like shit now.
Alright, hold on. Let me see what I can solve here.
All right. Greg, was there anything else that kind of...
Is it still shitty?
Well, it sounds like you're on your cell and driving around now.
Well, I've been driving around for like a half hour, but...
Well, well, I know, but... I guess you put it on speakerphone, maybe?
No, I got a phone call, and then, I don't know, everything went wonky, but let me try to troubleshoot, and I'll get back to you guys.
Well, it sounds better now. It's just before, I think it was maybe on speaker or something. I don't know. It sounds better now.
Okay, alright,
Yep.
So... Is it that noticeable? I mean, not to, like, sidetrack the episode, but, like, can you hear, like, rumbling, or what?
I'm going to hear some cars in the
Yeah,
background,
hear
but
people
earlier, like, just then, it was like...
Okay. Alright, so, we're good then. Alright, let's continue.
Sweet.
We'll fix it in post-production.
What post-production?
It's an industry term.
All right,
so just run
this
with
will all
it.
be fixed in post-production. We'll highlight it. Draw a smiley face over the audio. It'll work. But, so did anyone have anything they want to touch
Yeah,
on in issue number 7? Anything kind of stuck out beyond what we did kind of talk about?
I do like that Sunstreaker is the one who tipped Ironhide past like his boiling point. Probably because maybe he suspected that Sideswipe, knew something.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's like, hey, that all that stuff really messed you up, and we need to talk about it. And Sunstreaker's like, no, and then he goes and goads Ironhide into just beating the ever-loving shit out of Mirage.
Right. Which, that kind of sort of opens us up to the next issue. Greg, was there anything else you wanted to...
Yeah.
The next issue, it shows Sunstreaker. It shows in the past. Sunstreaker, and it was post-op of separating Hunter from him, and how he did not want to talk about it, and he just would refuse to talk to anyone. In which case, that totally makes sense. But then it kind of brings us back to the present about what's going on, and Cup is sort of Ironhide, say, man, you know better than this. There's no proof yet, basically. And he says, Cup makes the statement, you always expect the worst of bots, and because of that, you could see things he'd never see, talking about Prime. And that's whenever Ironhide kind of chokes up, and he's like, they've been shutting me out. He's like, I should have seen this coming, other stuff, because I think Ironhide was kind of an oldie along with Cup. But looks like their conversation is interrupted by some choom choom choom, and at which point Blaster's says it's the Swarm, and Perceptor's being a badass, and then let's see, Blair comes speeding in, says they're on us. No shit. And Cup asked for Drift, and then Blair, he was like, I had no idea, couldn't find him. So Perceptor's still, at this point, being a badass, literally not worrying about anything. And then Cup's telling everyone to stay in formation, stay alert. And then we pan to New York City. And then we've got the Reflectors here. And this was a very brutal, I think, page. Really, this is probably one of the most brutal scenes in the whole arc. As far as, alien robots' curiosity with humans. Because, they were like, "Don't be afraid. We're going to play a game. Would you like to play a game?" It would, "No, please don't." And then that's whenever he's just kind of there. He says, "Oh dear, they come apart quite easily, don't they? Such a mess. Shall we put them back together again? Yes, let's." Like that was pretty fucked up. At least at least I thought it was. Or Reflector was a troubled dude. Or they were all three troubled dudes.
Well, I mean, all through this, you've seen like this with all the different Decepticons. I mean, they're all commenting about how weak they are and blah 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 blah. They don't really care. I'm it's kind of curious though, because you see the three, and then you only see the one, and it's the same one from different angles. So, were the other three? Are they holograms, or did they disappear? Because you only see the one after that.
Yeah, something they didn't really talk too much about. Yeah, I think that's a character that could have used some extra explanation as to how he is, how he does what he does. You know what I mean? But oh well. Let's see. Well, we see Starscream walking past him, and Starscream's like, "What the fuck is this guy's problem?" And then he's going into kind of walking into a building, and then Minotaur says, "What do you want, Secret?" And then that's whenever Kickback is telling Shrapnel to be careful. He's addressing a superior officer, and that's whenever Starscream mentions, "You probably have me confused with someone else." And so some scheming is going on, and after they get past their formalities, Starscream's like, "In fact, perhaps it's time you and I had a talk." So typically whenever Starscream wants to talk with someone one-on-one, it doesn't really end good for someone. But
like, woohoo, Fanwink, Seeker.
hey, it's one of them jet guys in the next page. Woohoo! But then we go back to Cybertron, and it's again, Perceptor and Cup are on Roadbuster, shooting at stuff, with Ratchet just kind of like trying to keep up, I guess. And Cup makes the comment, "Days like this never get old," showing his true Wrecker's fashion. And let's back to the story at hand with the chase of the swarm. I like how Cliff Jumper's kind of sitting in the back of Hound. I think that's funny. But Cup's telling everyone to stay clean. He asks Perceptor. He literally just says Perceptor. And you see look, and there's two charges on either side of him. He, I guess, swiftly slings his rifle on his back, and then reaches for the two handguns that are on his waist. And then he just, in pure badass fashion, just takes one shot at each and blows up the portion of the bridge behind them. And then, let's see, Ratchet's worried about Drift. Bumblebee asks, "Does it matter?" Cup tells them to shut the hell up. And Perceptor is hit with what looks like a little poison dart from one of the swarm that was crawling on the building. And Cup's telling everyone to keep moving, just like keep shooting at him. But let's see, it's the only way. Okay, yeah, it looks like they're trying to blow out that last bridge to put some considerable time and distance between the swarm and them. But I think at which point the bridge didn't quite blow how they needed it to, and they're all essentially looking for volunteers. Like, Blair's saying he can do it, but Cup's like, "No, man, you're not fast enough. You'll just die." And at which point Blair's just like, "Give me a shot. We don't do this, and we're all dead." And that's whenever it looks up and says, "Wait a minute, one streaker." And then we pan back to Earth after things are getting good and exciting on Cybertron. Starscream. It's now Starscream looking out on the sunset. Let's see. Like he's talking to. I don't know who he's. I'm guessing he's talking to Bombshell, because he asked if Megatron suspects. says he always suspects. And Starscream says there was once a long time ago, there was a time I idolized him. And then looks like Bombshell has said it now. And Starscream says he's lost his way. Prepare the others, await my signal. So I think Starscream was playing on everyone's emotions of like what next, what to do next. And even his own, like Starscream seemed to have had those kind of emotions himself. But
yeah, I really like Starscream flying like he always suspects, like because Megatron is such a badass that like he never rests.
Right. He always knows. And it's typically Starscream. It's typically Starscream that's always trying to usurp him. So, back on Cybertron, we see Sunstreaker just kind of standing in the middle of the bridge, in his universe toy and all. And we see, I like the little bitty red, like out of all these blues and dark blues and grays, we just see this little red figure in the back. Obviously Ironhide, and he just speeds after him. And this is another very heartfelt moment, because Ironhide's like, hey kid, what? And it's kind of a flashback to Starscream. Starscream says, so do we have a deal? And Sunstreaker says, or Ironhide asks him, he says, what are you doing? Sunstreaker says, I'm not sure. And then it goes back to Starscream. It shows Sunstreaker and Starscream are having a conversation. Because Starscream said, he's asking, not sure, but this is what you want. And in all of it, he said, I know what was done to you, what it's like for you to stay here. You hate it, you can't stand it, and you want out. And, Sunstreaker's kind of befuddled, but Starscream, being the master deceiver that he is like, it's true. And again, kind of panning back to Ironhide and Sunstreaker. Ironhide's like, you're trying to get yourself killed. And Sunstreaker says, yes. And it kind of pans back to Starscream saying, I can't defeat Megatron alone. Help me. So it shows like the setup of deceptiveness. And Spiros, what you were talking about earlier, how ironically Sunstreaker was the one that kind of set Ironhide off in Mirage's area. But this is where Sunstreaker, finally tells Ironhide, he said it was me. And Ironhide's like, what? He said it was me, and then Ironhide says, what? And Sunstreaker kind of admits that he had a deal with Starscream, but it was supposed to take down Megatron. Talking about how he needed to get off the planet, dealing with his demons and whatnot. At which point, Ironhide was just like, wow, you made a deal with Starscream, you led us to the slaughter, why? And then that's whenever what's up?
I'm just saying I like this next page where it continues the conversation between.
What he's trying to say is how Sunstreaker got super dark. And sorry to kind of steal your thunder from this, Spiros, but Sunstreaker only agreed on one condition, and the condition was you kill every single one of them, talking about the humans. And he looks back at Ironhide and he says, I just wanted them to suffer for what to me. Then it looks like both of them got hit with this kind of poison dart thing, and there's a bunch of these failed experimental Insecticons running after them. And Sunstreaker screams, go, tell Ironhide to go. Then we drift, leap over, and do some super heroic shit. Let's see. Oh, okay. Well, it looks like he was just trying to get to the explosives, anyways. But he grabs Ironhide and kind of loads Ironhide up on him as he's and then that's whenever Sunstreaker shoots the explosive device, taking the bridge down. And let's see. They're all pissed off, and he's telling Drift to get off of him. And Jazz is like, it's probably best if you stay out here for right now. Keep watch. Being an ex-Decepticon, I'm sure a lot of people really like you. Let's see. Let's see. After all of that, we kind of get to see more of what happens with Spike and what his, I guess, sort of journey to the other side was all about. and it shows him he's got to pick up. He gets this experimental weapon. I think it was basically Shockwave's cannon, right? That they turned into like a gun, and he ends up shooting Frenzy in the head. Or wow, how dare myself? He shoots Rumble in the head. He shoots Red Cassette Tape Man in the face, and at which point that causes Soundwave to immediately after him, and there's this big sort of I don't want to call it really a fight. They do end up kind of escape. So that's really the next kind of noticeable thing that I realized happened. Also, Optimus Prime was a hooray, and he's talking about he's going to take the fight back to Earth, and they end up coming back. Do they own this bridge? I can't. No. Omega Supreme shows up. That's what happens. Omega Supreme kills all of the swarm that they're kind of fighting, and then it's whenever they kind of make their way back. And once they do get back, Omega Supreme and Devastator are kind of going on. I may be getting ahead of myself, actually. This, yeah, I'm totally getting ahead of myself. Am I getting ahead of myself, Greg?
I don't know where you... Yeah?
Yeah, cause that's right. Megatron, before all of that went down, before the Autobots showed back up, that's whenever Starscream kind of led his combined, I guess, coup against Megatron, and because I remember Megatron going toe-to-toe with Devastator, in which I feel like he lost that fight.
No, okay, so...
Soundwave went after Spike, and then Optimus makes his return. So, and then like Autobot morale is up, and then we get to the scene of Starscream's potential coup.
Which I want to point out, once you start with issue 9, you see a noticeable change in coloring and art, which, I mean, a very marked change. It's almost anime-esque versus the more sketchy.
Yeah, I want to say that maybe Josh Perez took over coloring, or is he not? Is he not in the credits?
He's not on it. No.
I'm flipping to the beginning to look through the credits.
I'm thinking about who do you think did the art? Because it was either Casey or Emiliano Santa Lucia, and I don't.
You know what? Those anime-esque, like the color pages. I believe they're done by E.J. Sue, who did the Asian series.
Actually, issue number 9, the colors are by Josh Bertram and Robert Dees.
Robert
Dees? I'm probably butchering that guy's last name.
Yeah, probably Diaz.
Yeah.
Or...
The art, I guess the actual art was by Robert Dees and Emiliano Santalucia. God, I hope I got that right.
Did he do the lines, Emiliano?
Yes, looks like both of them did lines, and Bertram and Diaz did colors.
I figure lots of lines get done in the production of one of these comics, but
every now and again they get a couple of different artists working on lines. Like we see that, like later on in like the kind of more current ongoings. But there is that.
Well, you know who Emiliano is, right?
An artist.
You're a Hasbro. Come on, man. You're a Hasbro guy. If anyone on here knows who he is, out of the 3 people here, that's not me. So I guess the 2 people here, you should know.
Why should we know?
Because he does a lot of the character designs for the toys. Well, and he did all the Masters of the Universe classics. He did the character designs for that.
Well, how long ago did he do that?
Yeah, I knew he did. I knew he did
Like-
the Masters of the Universe stuff.
Because
Did
if
Alpha
I'm
Trion.
If I'm not mistaken, and I don't know if I would get him in any trouble by saying this, but I don't think I would. But like Robbie Musso works on the package artwork. Or at least he has been for like Titans Return and stuff like that. So
Well, the only comic book art that he did for Transformers was he did Spotlight Blaster, and he did a couple of issues. He did 9, 10, and 14 of IDW. But as far as his character, like his robot designs, he did Prime Thundertron. He did Legends Cosmos, Rat Trap, Waspinator, Rhinox, Skybite, Metroplex. He did AoE Slog. He did Combiner Wars Skylinks. He did the Titan Masters for Crash Bash, Loudmouth, Nightbeat, and Terrible. He did Voyage and Alpha Trion, the Power Master Optimus Prime, and Soundwave. And that's what's on this list right now. I'm sure there's a little bit more. But there's multiple people that work on. So I mean, if you know one guy, but he's just kind of got a name because he's very social as well. He's very, very approachable, I guess. Like he's in groups, and he's in a Masters of the Universe group, like a sister group to the
that's
cafe.
really cool.
Yeah, he's just and he's always posting his art, like a lot of art and stuff, concept art for characters.
Right.
So there's that. But yeah.
Anyway. Let's see. Back to after Megatron was trying to fight all the Decepticons. This is where he had talked to him, and he was like, you're everything that the Decepticons embody, and one day, you'll get to have them, but today's not that day. Of course, I'm paraphrasing, but I thought that was a very kind of heartfelt speech that he had with him amidst their kind of infighting as the Autobots sort of landed and started kind of taking them apart one by one, and then you see Starscream think about it for a brief second. He kind of turns back to the other troops, and he throws his fist and screams, "All hail Megatron!" Which I believe, I think that's issue 10, where that down. And we see another just big, gigantic battle. And I really do like these earlier on fights in the comic books. Just all the detail and the artwork, and they really drag it out for good measure. You know what I mean? Like, in particular, I would kind of fun Omega Supreme fighting Devastator for the obvious reasons. I say the obvious reasons. Shout out to that G1 episode of Crystal City, one of the 3 times they gave the Constructicons a backstory that was different. Anybody remember? No.
Crystal City was
Not
that was
comics. It was the Mega Supreme and yeah.
G1. Yeah, the G1 show. That was what was the episode called? It was called The Origin of Omega Supreme.
It was the Secret of Omega Supreme.
But it looked like it gave it gave the Constructicons some kind of more backstory, which I thought was
yeah, because they were friends with Omega Supreme. He was super plucky and happy, and then Megatron. You guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay. Megatron, changed their personalities, and then Omega Supreme felt betrayed, and.
But then there was another origin story for the Constructicons where they were built by Megatron to be a combiner, or something like I don't know. The Constructicons had a couple of backstories in the tomb, but it's neither here nor there. I know what I do like is
it's that the origin of Megatron. They show him getting up from a table that's surrounded by 7 Constructicons.
Yeah.
So it was implied that the Constructicons built Megatron. So I think that's where you're getting the confusion. It's more Megatron's origin, the Constructicons.
And it very well could be, man. I literally just watched all those episodes once, and I was like, man, I can't do this. I couldn't do it again. You know what I mean? But that sounds right though. But anyway, Prime tells Omega Supreme, like, hey man, you and Devastator need to take that shit somewhere else. And all the while, if you remember the nuclear bomb that I guess those other like European world leaders called in to strike at America, to strike on America, whatever, to drop on New York. Come to find out, it's actually Octane, I believe, isn't it? It's Decepticon's ship. And
yes,
okay,
that was
cool. Let's see. Also, hiding amongst the humans is a Decepticon. It looks a lot like one of those Cybertron toys. Like, now that I'm looking at it.
Fallback?
Was it Fallback?
I was thinking of it too. Was that his name? It was, isn't it the one that got recolored into...
They colored it into black for a
It was
Botcon one year in 2009.
Alright, hold on then. Let's track back then. Black.
I think they actually made a
Black.
universe. I know there was like a universe toy that looked a lot like this. But I mean, everything about it looked...
No, Botcon Black was a, that was a hold on. Let's see what they used. They used a Cybertron toy for that, I think. Or is that what you said?
Yeah, it was, Cybertron toy.
Yeah, it was scatter. It was a redo of Scatter Shot. Who did I say? Fallback.
Yeah.
Let me try the fall. Name popped in my head. Fallback.
Outback?
Fallback was the one they redid. That was the Outback. What was the one? What was the other? Reveal the Shield line. They had a recolor of it. I think.
Yeah, Fallback and Braun were in the revealed Shield line.
Oh, well then... Fuck. I think it was a movie toy, and there was a...
Yeah.
It was the one that had those push missiles, and it had those super long missiles.
Yeah, the big green guy. And then he had a blue Autobot recolor, right?
Yep.
I'm drawing a blank on his name.
Mindset?
Hailfire. Hailfire was the...
Hailstorm.
Hailstorm was the green one. Mindset was the blue one.
Yeah, but I don't know. That's what I thought of when I first saw it, but that still doesn't fit. But we're getting close.
Yeah, I was gonna say we're pretty near the end. But one of my another favorite scene, I guess I should say. There's a ton of favorite scenes I have in this whole story arc. Was whenever he's getting up and all the army guys were like, he was here the whole time, and he's blowing up what's I guess left of their base, and you see Colonel Witwicky shoot a rocket at him, kind of gets his attention turned to him, and then you just see Cup walking out from beneath the water with a cigar in his mouth, and promptly handles him accordingly. And then the big Megatron and Prime fight, you got Spike kind of helping him out with that kind of shockwave cannon gun thing to call.
Oh, hey guys. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but before I forget, I actually went and flipped through the pages. The Decepticon is Drop Shot. It was a redo of Cybertron Defense Force Scatter Shot from the Cybertron toy line.
Oh well, yeah, Dakota had it right then. That was the mold
I knew
he
it
was
looked
thinking
super
of.
familiar.
So
It was something that I just kind of wanted to point out. It was cool they did use a lot of toy designs. And they still kind of do, sort of, when it matters, I guess. But yeah. Let's see. Then we see another notable thing is at the end of all this, it's pretty much defeated. Starscream is lifting him away from the battle. They're all kind of retreating, but it's about this big nuclear bomb was about to get dropped on all of them. And then Thundercracker was just sort of standing there. And I remember Drift reaching out to him, and he was just like, hey, good to see you're changing your heart, whatever. And Thundercracker just slaps his hand away. He's like, I'm not a traitor, dirty traitor, which I thought was funny. But Cracker kind of saves the day on this. He's the one that accepted the nuclear warhead, took it into space, and then blew it up, I guess, post-atmosphere, which they could slowly see on the ground. Making a victory for everything. And then another, kind of going back to Cup, destroying that dude that looked like a toy. I can't remember what you just called him. Spiros, I'm sorry. It shows the Colonel kind of sitting there saying, "So from outer space, huh?" Cup was like, "Yep." He says, "So what's with the cigar?" And then Cup says, "What's a cigar?" I don't know. I thought it was kind of clever.
Yeah, no, I like that. Drop Shot was his
sorry.
name. Hey, stop apologizing.
I like this next panel a lot, with Thundercracker and with Skywarp.
What was the deal with Sideswipe at the end of it? Like, I know, like, we see Hunter kind of all strung up, or bits and pieces of Hunter, and he looks very malnourished, but it's still kind of in his Shrieker head. And Sideswipe essentially kills his life for it. But what I'm trying to remember, like, I don't really know where that exactly is, like, where that really fits. Like, what happened? Was that somewhere? It looks like they may be somewhere where it's snowy. I don't know. I didn't really get.
Well, it showed earlier the Decepticons had Hunter. That's when they said, that's when was it Drift told Ironhide that it couldn't have just been Sunstreaker because they had code. The Sunstreaker, yes, set up the one thing, but he could have been the only one because they had codes and they had everything, all this other stuff that no one there could have known about, that were related to Earth. And then it shows, like, after the whole bombshell, like, torment thing, it shows him with Hunter. So the implication is that the Decepticons at some point captured Hunter in the tube, and that they hacked into, or had captured him at some point, and had hacked into him and the parts of the Cybertronian technology, and were using that to get information
Right.
through his link with their systems.
Okay.
And so there wasn't another traitor. It was that. And Sideswipe knew who he was. Did I say Sideswipe before? I meant Sunstreaker. But Sideswipe knew who he was, and he wasn't. It was a mercy kill.
Oh yeah, this was
Obviously.
in one of the Coda issues, wasn't it?
No, all hell Cybertron. Jesus Christ! This is how all Hail Megatron ends. This is the regular. That's the last page of the last issue.
Right? No. I mean, like you
of the
explaining
book.
that, because I know in one of the Codas it shows, like a Hunter and like Galvatron and Cyclonus story.
No, it's not. Well, I mean, it could be, but I mean, it's explained. Go back to it. It was after he beat the shit out of Mirage. Hold on. Hold on, let me find it exactly.
It's a race to see who can get to it.
Okay, here we are. So it's after
Yeah.
Sunstreaker kills himself to blow up the bridge, and it's when Drift is talking to Ironhide, and Ironhide's on the bed, and he said, "You should know it wasn't all him. He led you to the ambush, but that was the only designed to defeat Prime. Everything else wasn't his fault." And he said the Decepticons had codes and a way into our systems that Sunstreaker couldn't possibly provide.
Okay.
And Ironhide responds with, "So you're saying there's another traitor?" And Drift says, "No, I'm saying there's more to this than we know." And then the very next page is Bombshell looking up, and then at a light, and the next panel is Hunter. That's when I said I want a Hunter playset.
I guess I totally missed that. I suck.
Yeah.
Oh well.
And it looks like he's got one arm, which is like Sunstreaker's ear, and then I don't even know if he has any legs or another arm. It looks like he's
later on, the Sideswipe finding him, he doesn't have
there's
any.
like no legs.
Yeah, there's nothing. Dude, what a way to just die.
Well, dude, it's like they like the plug that goes into his eye, which I can only assume is some kind of like spike that goes into his brain or something.
Oh yeah.
Like it's a gruesome way to present a prisoner, but it's also a good illustration of
I like how dark the comics got at this point, honestly.
Yeah, like just the wholesale slaughter of humans and all that, but it's a good illustration of Bombshell embracing his function of torment.
Yeah. Real quick, if you want to touch on one of the Coda issues, mostly the Cup one, I think that's where it's kind of the Cup and Perceptor one, really. Those are kind of what I think are the most important ones. Basically, it picks up like very shortly after the events of Spotlight Cup, and we see Springer uppercutting Prowl, which, I guess apparently Springer's the only one that can just put hands on Prowl, and Prowl doesn't try to find some sneaky way to get them killed for it, which we'll find out much later on. Wise and what. Anyways, Prowl says, well, hey, Cup's doing better. He goes, well, he didn't look like he was doing better. And then he ran some test footage, showed Cup running around with a cigar in his mouth, shooting shit up, jumping around, transforming like he was brand new. And Springer even asked, he said, what's he doing sucking on a cigar? And Prowl was like, well, trade one addiction. Was it Prowl or was it Perceptor that said trade one addiction for another? Talking about how they kind of laced it with those crystals found on the planet. And that's basically what kind of came down to that. As far as Perceptor being a bad, it's like they ran into Bludgeon and the Monstructor. And Perceptor went from being a helpless scientist, and I think this is where they also picked up Hot Rod, so that explains how he got there too. Perceptor, he ended up getting hurt, so he just stayed in his lab and constantly was upgrading himself. And Greg, you even talked about it on the last issue, how he just moved all of his stats to marksman. So, but that is how they picked up Hot Rod, which was cool to see. That was neat to see. But anyone have anything else they kind of wanted to add to All Hail Megatron and the Coda issues?
Well, there's one issue where it's showing the feet, and Starscream takes the Matrix and he's trying to open it and kind of like claim the mantle of leadership, and he fails miserably, and he just kind of the Decepticons claim him as their leader, and they say hail, hail. But the last panel shows Starscream just like with his head in his hands, like he's so out of his depth that he doesn't even know what to do with himself.
Yeah, we'll see that with him a lot, I think, going forward. At least I think we will. But
and then there's also a Coda issue with Sunstreaker that focuses on him being rebuilt and Hunter, and it gives the little hint that he may not be completely dead because his head is got a lit optic in the middle of a swarm pile.
Yeah, that's what a little hint to have.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
Oh, and then we
go ahead.
And then we have our first appearance of Scourge. When they're setting up Galvatron and Cyclonus coming back for the Chaos event that will be covered in another episode.
Which I think is the true the proper, I guess, kind of Nova Prime story. I think. I like how they.
Yeah,
I mean,
because
it's kind of a pain in the ass that that story was told 3 times. But I liked this one more than I liked the first one or the third one. Whenever we do get around to it. But other than that, is there anything else anyone wants to add? I think we're going right at 2.5 hours now.
Yeah, I think we touched
I
it.
think we've covered everything. Prowl's machinations. And having a hidden agenda for bringing Cup back, and which I mean, I love the world building that was done in that issue alone. Just
Right.
Like Prowl wasn't special ops, but he's just this bastard who pulls strings behind the scenes, and he understands the value of Cup because Cup is one of those penultimate Autobots that everybody knows. So he wanted to bring him back to be the face of morale for the Autobots, and then of course, as we'll learn later on,
See,
for
like he was
reasons.
definitely the face of the Wreckers at that point. Because I mean, it really looked in control throughout all of Megatron. He was the leader of the Wreckers. You know. Yeah,
Well,
and
he
that's
trained
true too. But
most of those guys.
we'll talk about it next week. But in Last Stand of the Wreckers, like Springer's definitely in charge. Like you can tell.
Yeah.
Springer is. He's back to kind of leading up that subgroup. But here it totally looks like Cup was, and that's kind of something I would have liked a little bit of expanding on. Like, if it was something simple as Cup saying hey kid, here's the keys. I'm just a soldier just like you.
I'm just a soldier.
I'm re-enlisting or something. Yeah. But anyway, go ahead.
Sorry. I mean, I do like the callback in the Cup coda that to the Pretender technology that Jetfire developed for the excursion into the Expanse.
Yeah.
Like it's basically like Cup's riddled addicted self in a Pretender body, and the Cygar is just something to keep the addiction at bay. Not that I meant to recap what was already said, but
yeah, I mean it is
like it's a lot of people don't realize that Cup is basically a Pretender at this point now.
Yeah, and we even see the Cygar falls out of his mouth, and he sees his arm that had just kind of fallen off that he was joking about, and then it looks like Outback's arm for a minute, and he kind of has flashbacks to the Cup, being on that planet, and then finally Perceptor picks it up. He's like, "Here you go, old man. Put this back in your mouth." So pretty cool. But if that's it, then this been.
Oh, and I just sorry, I'm gonna keep being an asshole. But I mean, Nick Roche's art, like that man. I would love to get him on an ongoing book at some point.
Oh, no.
Because his exaggerated cartoony style, just I don't know. There's something about it. I love it. I know some people find it, a little too animated for a Transformers comic, which is kind of ironic if you think about it. But I mean, his expressions on every bot's face are just so expressive. And
he's a hell of a line artist. Yeah.
Yeah. And he tells a good story because he did Sins of the Wreckers. Like he wrote that, I believe.
Yeah, I know he and James Roberts, I believe, co-wrote Last Stand. But Sins of the Wreckers I think was 1% him.
Yeah, that was a total solo show because it was actually delayed by a couple of months because of a personal issue he had.
Right.
But yeah, okay, I'll shut up now so we can wrap it up.
That's all, man. So that has been it for this week's issue of Information Creep. I think we're living up to the name quite well. So, Greg, can people find you anywhere?
Yo. Uh, yeah. In your hearts, in your minds. Shattercast and Cut every Friday morning on the YouTubes and the iTunes. And yeah, other than that, I'm around.
All right, and Spiros.
I'm lurking in Facebook groups all the time. You'll probably see me pissing somebody off with my opinion.
Who are you, Phil? Come on.
No, I mean, dude, I get blocked like probably on a weekly basis by somebody just for like saying something that I find inoffensive, but apparently there are too many snowflakes in the world, and I'm just the match melting them all. I handle the Toy Detox Twitter account, so you can follow me on Twitter @_Toy Detox. And then also, I took the liberty of creating a Gmail account for our little podcast here. So if any listeners want to reach out to us, comments, questions, criticisms, we have a Gmail at informationcreep, all one word, @gmail.com.
Cool. Also, you can look for that in the descriptions on both and for whatever this does go up in both audio and video form. I am Dakota. You can find me everywhere at Primal Sabbath. I too lurk in the groups from time to time. And also you can catch me on Stasis Lock, which is also part of the Cool Table Network, if you guys want to check that out. You can also check out Plastic Fanatics, the Realm of Collectors Hangout podcast, the Enter the Realm podcast,
Nerd Rage Radio.
Nerd Rage Radio. Stasis Lock, Beer Volters 40K, 8 weeks.
Beat to it.
Yep, I'm trying to get to where I can remember all of them.
Apparently 8 weeks is in pre-production, so if you guys are fans of music and very interesting discussion, do check that out. The first season, so to speak, because they released it Netflix style, can be found on the interwebs. I think it's on Podbean.
Be cool. Also, there was the I know Eddie and Steele did the two guys from Jersey thing. I guess that'll be maybe a recurring thing, but anyways, all kind of under that banner, so to speak. But anyways, thanks for watching and listening to us, guys, and we'll catch you guys next week.